ready?
Good morning. This is the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners on February 23, 2021, with our county administrator issues and updates. Gary Schmidt.
Thank you, Chair Smith, and Commissioner Savas is present on Zoom. First, Christina is our guest here for the first item.
I am looking and I do not see him yet.
Do not see him yet, Stephen. So I'm actually going to bump this then. We'll come back to this. First, we'll do a legislative update. We have Chris Lyons from Public and Government Affairs. There are several bills to seek your direction on, Commissioners. It's all in your packet in a single packet, which is posted online. We confirm that. So, Chris, please go ahead.
You bet. Hello, Commissioners. And I'll also add we have all of our subject matter departments online in case there are any questions that are beyond my expertise.
Thank you.
So I'll start with first bill in your packet, SB 587. It's the Tobacco Retail Licensing Bill. This bill would create a statewide tobacco retail licensing program for the purpose of reducing and enforcing the selling of tobacco and vape products to youth and people under the minimum legal sales age, which is 21. The major elements, it would require DOR to license all businesses that sell tobacco products and inhalant delivery systems and renew those annually. It requires an annual fee so that there can be education, surveillance, and enforcement. Importantly, it does not preempt local public health authorities from further regulating time, place, and manner should they so choose. H3S strongly supports this bill. This is something that the county's been looking into for many years, and for a time there we were looking at creating our own. However, it's our preference that there be a policy created at the statewide level, because then it provides uniform regulation across the state. And PGA's addition to that is that there is a broad coalition of support. Both Multnomah and Washington counties support it, as does the Coalition of Local Health Authorities and many other health entities. So our recommendation is your support for the bill that would then give us the flexibility to support this and other, to add to our
Thank you,
efforts
Chris.
of supporting youth.
I'm going to move this along. Commissioners, do you have any comments?
Yeah,
Mr. Schrader.
I do. Actually, I prefer seeing this done at a state level. I know that we've talked about doing it here locally with our public health folks, kind of moved very quickly with things for it. Oh, and I'm going to apologize to Commissioner Fisher. I didn't, well, that's okay.
I wasn't even raised.
Oh,
when
okay,
you
sorry
said
about that. Okay. And I've always felt, really for consistency's sake, if we're going to do something like that, and if it's a public health issue, it should be statewide.
Okay.
So
You're in support.
I would support it.
Thank you.
just because-
Commissioner Fisher?
So yeah, piggybacking on what Commissioner Schrader said, when this first came to us, when I was a pretty new commissioner, I had a lot of questions. I didn't even realize how incredibly addictive and detrimental nicotine is to youth and how the vaping is marketed to youth. I was a full awareness to the point where I really thought this should be statewide, but I was ready to, if not for COVID, I think we would have moved forward locally, but it needs to be statewide.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Scholl?
Chris, what would be the impact on the county to administer this?
I'll have to call in our H3S friends on the line.
Who would you like to bring in?
H3S, go ahead and comment.
Erica Silver, maybe, is she on?
Okay, let me see.
We have to bring him in the room first.
I don't see Erica Silver on.
Is there a cost? Is there a license fee that we charge? Has that been determined, Chris?
I mean, there would be a fee on retailers. Oh, it's Jamie Zentner, sorry.
I
She has her-
guess,
Let me move her over.
Has the fee been identified yet?
I don't know.
Retailers would be charged?
Let's ask Jamie.
Okay.
Commissioner Schrader, you will make a comment while we're waiting?
yeah, I think what I'm seeing is that we want to make sure it's not an unfunded mandate for counties to administer.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's my only concern on this. Commissioner Savas, do you have a comment?
Yeah, well, mine was on the same lines as Commissioner Scholl. So I just wanted to, when we had discussed this at the county level, I would, people maybe remember I was advocating this be done at the statewide level for not just uniformity, but also so that it'd be effective. So people didn't have to go across Washington County or Multnomah County or other counties to basically circumvent the county ordinance. But In that proposal, we had the cost or the fee passed on to the retailer, or however that was done, to where we be reimbursed for administrative fees. So my question is very similar to Commissioner Scholl's. Will the state make sure that everyone gets the administrative costs covered to administer this program? So it's not an unfunded mandate, so to speak.
Yeah, it's my concern as well. Chris, does AOC support this?
I don't believe they have a position.
Well, that's kind of telling to me right now. I'm wondering if because there's an administrative cost involved and it would appear to be an unfunded mandate, I would say, I don't know how urgent this is, I would say our board gives the approval subject to no unfunded mandate on us.
And Jamie's online if you'd like to.
Which
have-
is
Okay,
consistent with AOC's.
Okay, if
Yeah.
Jamie,
Which is consistent with AOC's position.
sure, I'll point out, there is a hearing on Monday, so if we want to weigh in, there is some time sensitivity. But Jamie, are you on the line and can chime in on this?
I am on the line. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for your questions about the fee and the funding. This is not an unfunded mandate. So far, the licensing, the administration of the licensing would go through the Department of Revenue. So those fees would support Department of Revenue. And then the education and enforcement portion, the Oregon Health Authority would be funded to do that. Clackamas County Public Health would have the option to support the Oregon Health Authority in that education and enforcement if we chose to do that. And if we did decide to enter that agreement with the Oregon Health Authority, Clackamas County would receive reimbursement for that work. So there is, from the way that the bill is written now, there is no unfunded mandate.
Okay, is there any cost to retailers?
Yes.
And
the
how much is
retailers-
that?
The fee has not been set in the bill. That would go through rules, I believe.
So we're talking the end of session, it sounds like. Chris, I think you have clear direction from us. Report back if anything changes.
Okay, so just so I am clear, does the board support this?
Providing
No
there is
unfunded
providing there is no unfunded mandate.
Okay,
Great.
will do. Thank you. And thank you, Jamie. Okay, the next set of bills, SB 425 and SB 426. These reclassify communication professionals who answer and manage 911 calls as first responders for the purposes of receiving appropriate benefits similar to police and fire responders. Currently, 911 responders are in the same classification as clerical services, but the argument is that, and CCOM strongly supports this, the argument is that they, just like police and fire, are under significant stress and trauma through the nature of their work responding to calls and people experiencing emergencies. Under the bill, roughly 200 people would be covered by the legislation, which would be approximately 20% of those are Clackamas County employees, so about 40 people in Clackamas. Just recently, I think it was last year, we supported similar efforts at the federal level, and the history on this is that there have been efforts in other states to reclassify these positions. I believe Colorado was one of the first, and then in April of last year, the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners did just that as the first in Oregon. The bill is supported by APCO-NENA, which is the Public Safety Communication Officials Association, as well as AFSCME Council 75. So we would recommend support of these bills.
Chris, has AOC taken a position on this?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, is there any fees or anything, is there any cost to us on this? And and you mentioned the federal, did that federal legislation go through too?
I don't believe the federal did. I think that there would be a cost in terms of benefits so that these employees could then be on par with police and fire.
And who would be on the hook for that?
I believe the county.
Gary?
Through the PERS benefits the county pays, yes, those employees would be placed in a different classification, which could potentially cause an increase in our PERS benefit, PERS rate we pay to those employees.
Well, this sounds like to me that it's an unfunded mandate. Does it sound like that to you folks, or what are you thinking? Commissioners?
Yeah, Chair, I'll jump in. Chris, you'll hear this from me a lot on these bills, and that is, what are the financial implications? So I would like to just defer this if we can till next week, and maybe if that's enough time for you to get those answers, and let our HR folks evaluate the cost to us.
Yeah, we can do that. I don't know if CCOM's on the line. They may have an answer to this. But if not, we can certainly delay.
I'd like to hear from HR and all the other related things, PERS, all of that. So with the roll-ups and everything, if they've got that, that's great. But I would imagine that that would take a little bit of work and validation. Gary, do you have anything?
I don't have an answer offline. We can get that information for you, Board. So I'll have to hold on this, Chris.
Yep.
Yeah, bring it back next week or when you have your information.
we can do
Chris.
that.
Thank you.
Okay, the next bill is SB 464, Property Tax Relief for Wildfire Destroyed Properties. This one requires the tax collector to prorate or cancel property taxes for those properties that were destroyed or damaged during the fall wildfire, as long as the county was under a declared state of emergency at the time. Per assessment and taxation, there are nearly 70 homes destroyed or damaged in Clackamas County, and about 170 other structures as well. And so these are the properties that would fall into this category. Both the Association of County Tax Assessors and Tax Collectors support the bill, and this came to us from Senator Girard, who had asked for our support on the bill. Marion County is currently supportive, and as is AOC. And we've learned that there is an amendment in the works that would make the bill permissive and add local discretion, and also provide clarifying language around improvements, around the word improvements, or what the type of eligible property is. So given that it is permissive, we would recommend your support on the bill.
Gary?
Well, forgive me, if we're following the line of questioning I'm hearing, what's the cost to Clackamas County of those 70 homes if we were to bypass those property taxes? Do you know, Chris?
It's a good, I don't know.
I look at it a little bit different. We're not spending any money. It's not an outlay for us. I understand what you're saying, Gary. However, last night I testified on the wildfire recovery committee. It was a joint Senate and House hearing. And before I came on, I listened for an hour of the people who had homes destroyed in southern part of Oregon, mainly Marion County South. And I tell you, they aren't even one iota close to getting compensation to rebuild. FEMA has not stepped up. And to listen to these people, it doesn't sound like the state of Oregon has stepped up to help in the replacement dwellings. And they have lost homes, and they have lost business. Grown men would come on during the testimony before Representative Clem and cry. That's all I could do to sit through it until my time came up when I represented Clackamas County. So I would bet, and I hate to say this, I would bet we would never ever see the city of Detroit ever again. That is how bad it is in some of these areas. South Clackamas County is as bad. So I am in full support of this for our people. I don't know. Do the other commissioners have any comments? Commissioner Scholl?
Yes. If this should pass, would the property taxes be adjusted back to the date of the fire and the loss of the dwelling? And two, if a citizen lost their home, will their taxes be adjusted automatically by the county, or is there a requirement for the property owner who lost that house to come in and file for the adjustment?
That's a good question, Mark.
Yeah, these are good for the tax assessor, I believe. I'm hoping Tammy is on the line,
Yes.
or Dina.
Okay, thank you.
Are they on, Christina?
Let me take a look. Do not see Tammy, and you said Ordina?
Yep.
Oh, hold on, I have a hand raised. I have Bronson on.
Okay, great.
Dan Johnson's in the back, has his hands up. Great, come on up. Dan Johnson's the head of DTT.
So in my other hats is helping EOC Command. One of the first efforts we did is in regards to wildfire, were to set up these resource centers. Assessment and tax was a part of that discussion, and they actually sent staff down there to assist folks in describing the destruction they had on their properties, to assist them in adjusting their taxes over the next year. So
Oh, okay.
that work has taken place, and they continue to coordinate on that.
What was that last statement?
Pardon me?
What was that last statement you made? I didn't hear.
They continue to coordinate with citizens on that topic right now.
Okay, so I would think, if I had to guess, it's up to the citizens to apply.
Bronson's on the line. I think he can answer this.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
He's just unmuting himself. There he goes.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Bronson Rueda, and I'm the Deputy Assessor for the Assessment and Taxation Department. The two questions I think I heard, the first one was about assessed value. Once something is rebuilt, what happens to the value? Is that correct?
No, Commissioner Shaw will submit his questions again.
The first question was, if this bill should pass, does it relieve property taxes from the date of the loss of the fire? And two, do people who lost properties in the fire, will they be required to come in and apply for the adjustment, or will it be automatic?
Okay, so the second one is fairly easy. If we find out about a loss, then we'll proactively look to work with that taxpayer to guide them through the application process. If we don't know about the loss, then we don't know. But we've put a lot of information out there on our website and working with the EOC in order to educate folks who have had unfortunate losses to their property that there is an application process to get property tax relief if their property was destroyed or damaged for the fire. So through the fire. So, and the first question that you had, there's a lot of details to it. I don't have all the details in front of me, but the bottom line is, if not considering this bill, I don't know all the details of this bill, but currently, if their property was damaged, there is a proactive relief of tax, and then for the next tax year, there is also relief of tax. So depending on how much of the property was damaged, there's a lot of details that go into it, but there is tax relief in both instances. It just depends on how much property was damaged.
In the bill, language in the bill says prorated. I assume.
Prorated, correct.
Excuse me?
Yes, prorated. So for this first year, you take the date of the damage and then you prorate the amount of taxes going forward, depending on how much of the property was destroyed.
Yeah. On whatever, September 8th, 9th, or 10th, or whatever. What you guys determine that date, I'm sure.
Correct.
Okay. Any other comments from commissioners? Commissioner Fisher?
Yeah, Chair.
Commissioner Fisher?
Savas here. I'm in full support of the bill, and I trust that the details will be worked out by all the good minds that will be applied on this. So it's only fair. I think it's unfair to tax people for such a loss, and so appreciate your words and your experience last evening, Chair. So I'm in full support.
Commissioner Fisher?
Yeah, I'm just curious if we know how Southern Oregon comes in on this, since they had the bulk of the damage and talent and.
I would imagine they're supportive. AOC is supporting, and they typically reflect, their
Initially, I was
individual
told that
counties.
both Marion and Lynn counties were supportive of this bill.
Do we know about Jackson?
I don't know. I've not heard.
I wouldn't be surprised if Jackson didn't
They had like
support it.
2,000 homes.
Yeah.
I would expect they
I
would.
just hope I'm just hoping they're at the table working out all of the amendments and.
Well,
I would imagine they've been consulted, but I'll add, it's permissive, so they,
Right.
they don't have to
and
do
we've already
this.
had one hearing in the Senate on this, and do we know when the second hearing date is set? I would imagine it will go to Ways and Means.
Yeah, I believe we should hear in the next couple of weeks if it'll have a work session.
Okay, so the second hearing will be in Ways and Means, which means it'll be toward the end of the session. We have time to, if there's a modification in the bill, I think we will have time to visit it. So I think everybody is in support. Yeah, we'll go ahead and give our support, and Chris, just keep monitoring for it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next set of bills, these are ones we had talked to you about a couple weeks ago when we'd first found out about them, dealing with timber and severance taxes timber and severance tax bills. There have been a number of these. They're listed in your packet, reestablishing taxes on forest products, including harvest taxes and severance taxes. BCS is strongly opposed to these bills. The severance tax in particular would require taxation on any timber harvested on county lands, and we own 3,000 acres of timberland. But only a portion of those revenues would come back to the county because the bill sets up other, it directs some of those funds to go to other purposes as well. AOC has weighed in, opposed, and our suggestion is you do the same and, like AOC, suggest that there be some kind of task force appointed with counties at the table to make sure that something like this, counties can help to influence and get behind if something like this were to happen.
I tend to agree. I don't like taxes. Board, Mark?
Yes, I am opposed to these bills. We do not need to add any more expense to our Oregon lumber products and make them less competitive in the marketplace.
Thank you. Commissioner Schrader?
So what's the audience this is targeting? Is this going to impact small woodlot owners as well as the larger industry folks?
I believe it's across the board.
Okay, yeah. I can't, particularly if it's affecting our small woodlot owners, I can't get there on that. I do know there are folks out there that want to see it because they see it as a way to mitigate continued logging with some of the larger industry folks. I am aware of that, and I've talked to them, but my concern has always been the smaller woodlot folks and what it might do to impact them in particular.
I agree totally, totally. I'm totally support. Yes. Are you finished?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
done.
Everybody,
Yeah, I'm just curious, where would the dollars go? Are these going to the state? And who wants these? I mean, what's the point of these bills?
Yeah, I know that it.
Reinstituting these taxes, why?
Yep. I know that it directs funding towards wildfire, towards emergency preparedness, public safety. It's a range of issues that they're, I think, wanting to find funding for, and this is their mechanism for doing that. I don't know who is behind it.
And do we know why we would eliminate the Oregon Forest Resources Institute?
Martha, could you say that again?
I'm not sure why it would include, another bill eliminating the Oregon Forest Resources Institute. Why would that?
Yeah.
What's the purpose of that?
Yeah, I know there have been a number of recent issues associated with that group.
so Chris, what type of momentum do you think this is getting in the legislature?
They all have been scheduled for public hearings, I believe, tomorrow.
You know, I think, Board, what do you think about submitting letters on all three of those with a harsh condemnation of the damage this would do, especially to Clackamas County, when a lot of our timber that's to be harvested had been burned ahead of schedule. And so not only have these southern communities, southern Clackamas County communities been devastated by their loss of their crops in timber, because timber is a crop. Now they're taxed, more on it. And I just feel that maybe a statement is in order. Board, what do you think?
Chair, if I may?
Yep.
I just want to chime in. I think it would be, before we send a letter, maybe we dig into the motives, getting back to Commissioner Fisher's question, try to understand what the purpose is and what actually would be the outcome. And then we could be better informed to craft a letter if that indeed is what we pursue. But I'm not inclined at this point to support it without a compelling reason.
Yeah, prepare a letter and find out concurrently, would you please?
Yeah, and typically, how we work in government affairs is when the county takes a position on an issue, at our next opportunity to weigh in a public hearing, we submit what we call a policy statement, laying out what our position is and why. So that would be, our approach anyway.
Yeah, my only thought, piggybacking on what Paul says, is that it's important to understand the big picture. There are things that we want and need in Clackamas County we need to work on wildfire prevention, we need to have disaster preparedness. I'm not sure about the larger context of what the purpose of these bills are. I do know that taxpayers and the public likes to see if they're paying for something, that if it's tied, if it makes sense, the revenue source makes sense to them, if it goes towards something, then that can garner more support. I just don't know who's wanting these. Did a task force come up with them? Was there a lot of community input? But we know one thing for certain, we do need to work with our state and federal partners on wildfire prevention for sure. So I just think we need more information. And if we have some time, it would be good to get it.
I think we need to look at who the chief sponsors are and who's lobbying for it. That would be my ask. I mean, the chief sponsors we can look up ourselves, I get that, but I'm wondering who is actively lobbying pro and con for this. That would be interesting to find out.
Okay, well, we can dig into this further and come back to you in a week.
Yeah, we do not support it, definitely, but dig in, try to find some more.
Okay.
If I can add just one thing real quick, and that is if there's an element to where it helps allows freeing up some regulatory constraints on cleaning or thinning our forest to better suppress fires or resist fires in the future, then great. But there, for example, is one compelling reason to support it if that's part of it. And I just don't know.
Well, I will say this, Commissioners, you do know that our private landowners do pay a severance fire tax, and it's pretty high, and they impose that on themselves along, I don't know how long ago it's at, 20, 25 years. They are already paying this tax. So this is a tax on a tax on a tax. And so that's why I'm just very much opposed to it. Yeah, okay, Chris, go, please. Next bill, please.
Okay, so just to wrap up, we will submit a letter of opposition for the public hearing, and I will follow up with you in the coming days with a little bit more information on the sponsors.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
So Chris, I don't think that, I mean, if we're going to weigh in on it, I don't say at this point I'm opposed because I don't have enough information. I heard Commissioner Savas say that he wasn't aware, so I don't know if I don't think we should stay neutral until we know more. I mean, I'm just looking through the bills.
This is a tax increase. I think it's a no-brainer. Seriously, this is a timber Chris, is this on, let's have a point of clarification. Chris, is this on federal forest land?
and more, yes. I mean,
And
it would be
state
on the
forest land?
county. Yes, I believe
And
it's.
private forest land?
Yep.
I think this is I think this is double, triple, quadruple taxation. And I am really so opposed to this. Do we know when a hearing is?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Well, board, we need to oppose this.
Well, if we want to take a vote, I would abstain because I could see taking a position of opposing it if I had more information, but at this point, I don't know what the trade-offs are. Looking at the different bills, one was at the request of the Department of Forestry, one was there's a lot of moving parts. Without the context, I'm not prepared to absolutely oppose.
Okay. Commissioner Scholl?
Chair Smith, the negative pressures on the logging industry in Oregon has been going on for decades. And every time we tax those people a little bit more, they get a little bit poorer. That's what I stand on this.
Gary, do we want to poll?
I just take a vote.
Yeah, okay,
Make a motion,
Christine.
take a vote, please.
Yeah. Okay, I suppose the motion that needs to be considered, do we support the timber severance, the 3 timber severance bills that's been presented?
Chair, I'll make a motion, but I just need one clarifying question. Is AOC opposed to this, Chris?
Yes.
Okay, so with that, I think I have confidence that that's probably a position I would probably fall in line with. So I move we oppose the 3 bills.
Second.
Seconded.
Commissioner Savas has made a motion, Commissioner Scholl has seconded. Any more comments? Christina, take the poll.
Okay, Commissioner Fisher?
I'll abstain.
Okay, Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
And Chair Smith?
Aye, the motion passes 4-0-1. Thank you very much for your comments on this, everybody.
Okay, the next bill, SB 623, Workforce Development. This is a follow-up to the discussion we had on February 9th, and you at the time had asked for more information on how it would be paid for. I've since spoken with Oregon Workforce Partnership, who is pushing the bill, and confirmed that any reference to new funding is being taken out of the bill. And you'll see in your packet, I've included the amendment that is being put forward that reflects this. And they've confirmed that this bill is, think of it as a phase 1 for workforce changes, and it's looking at existing monies that come into the system and making sure that we're fast tracking those dollars out to local boards and that they're getting there as quickly as possible. And so that's really just federal monies that flow into the state as well as the CARES Act. And then in a year or so, they will start looking at the next phase of this work, and that's when they would consider potentially new monies, but that's not this bill.
I see a lot of changes in the language of the bill. I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I would support this. This is really, it's not really trying to get more revenue from taxpayers in Oregon as it's really trying to get the federal money redirected in a much more streamlined and direct way to local workforce boards. Because the system, if you look at, and I don't have it in front of me, I probably should have brought it today to show you. If you look at, quote unquote, the system just on a visual, it's absolutely untenable. It's a mess. And so the intent of this is to get the money where it belongs, and those to the local workforce boards who know their communities and are actively working with their community colleges and their contractors for everyone from disabled to displaced workers, disabled people who are barriered workers, to industry and our employers about, you know, what kind of a pipeline do they have for employees. So it runs the gamut of what we do for workforce. And we have an excellent workforce board, and we have some good people on it. And, you know, I would say good bill should pass on this one.
Okay. Well, you've been working on it, and
Yeah,
we
yeah.
discussed this, you know, back a couple weeks ago, and it looks like it's come back new and improved. Commissioner Schrader, Fisher?
I'm good with
Oh, because your
supporting it.
thing is up.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Yes, I support this.
Yeah. Any other discussion? Paul, you're okay?
Yep.
Okay. It's a go.
Okay, thank you. And one last thing I just want to close a loop on. 2 or 3 weeks ago, we also discussed the Aurora Airport bill, HB 2497. And at Commissioner Savas's request, I provided him with a contact person over at Marion County for him to connect with and talk about this issue more. So I just want to circle back on that and make sure you were aware we closed that loop.
Great, thank you. Is that it, Chris?
That is all.
Before Chris goes, can I ask a question?
Yes, Commissioner
So
Fisher.
on the issues today is, it's listed on there as landlord tenant issues, but I'm just wondering if I could keep Chris here and bring up just a question about that, is why Chair Smith, we had a conversation about this earlier. We put it on issues. We didn't talk about it last week. But if I could just keep you here, and is that okay with you if we
Yeah.
move the agenda
Well,
on a
do
little
you,
bit?
okay, depends how long it's going to take. We do have a guest online ready to testify. Do you want Chris to come back during the landlord issues? That might be more efficient.
Totally up to you,
Chris, are you
Chair.
available to come back during our landlord discussion?
Sure.
Okay, can we do that? And then
It's
you can
totally
get.
fine. I just,
And then
since
I
he
don't
was
want to be,
here-
I don't want to be rushed on that. I don't
No,
want to,
It's not going to take very long.
that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Gary?
Okay, so thanks, Chris. We'll come back to you on this later. Next, we're going back to the first item today, draft Metro tipping fees ordinance related to solid waste and waste management. We have Stephen Madcord, County Counsel, and a guest, John DiLorenzo, to give you
Christina,
an
do we
update.
have Mr. DiLorenzo online?
He is online and available.
There he is right there. Good. Hello, John. So what we have is, we have a code change proposal to you, and it concerns solid waste. And Mr. DiLorenzo was a proponent of it, and I presented it to the chair, and so it's before you now. I told Mr. DiLorenzo that this is issues, 15 minutes. 10 minutes he can present, and you will likely have questions. If the board thought that this was appropriate, you could move it directly to a public hearing, or you could move it to a policy session, either or. Code amendment change requires typically 2 hearings, 13 days apart, and then it would be effective immediately, or in the usual course, 90 days. I will note that staff does have some concerns with the current form of this proposal, but that said, Dan Johnson's here, and Rick Winterfelter, I believe, is online as well. But first, how about we hear from Mr. DiLorenzo, who is a private attorney in private practice down at the Portland office of Davis Wright. John, you want to take it from there?
Thank you very much, and thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me this opportunity to present. I'm John DiLorenzo. I'm an attorney, a partner at Davis Wright Tremaine. I'm here on behalf of my clients and residential garbage ratepayers who believe that Metro is not adhering to the requirements of its charter as it sets tip fees for solid waste. More than a year ago, residential garbage customers in Clackamas County filed a lawsuit against Metro, alleging that Metro had violated Section 15 of its charter, which says, quote, charges for the provision of goods or services by Metro may not exceed the costs of providing goods or services. Now, the lawsuit was based on written studies which were published by Metro, which showed that what Metro's actual costs of disposal of wet waste were as opposed to dry waste. Wet waste is residential waste, waste that comes from restaurants, waste that comes from any area that's all mixed together, even with bricks and mortars and whatever. If there's any moisture at all, it's considered wet waste. And then there's dry waste, which is primarily demolition waste. Metro's ordinances treat wet waste disposal and dry waste disposal as totally discrete services. But Metro charges a blended tip fee. The blended fee is higher than Metro's actual cost of disposal of wet waste, and it's lower than Metro's actual cost of disposal of dry waste. And so our residential ratepayers have alleged in the lawsuit that Metro is using residential customers to subsidize demolition and construction contractors, and is seeking a declaration from the court that Metro's tip fee needs to be lowered for residential ratepayers. So for more than a year, the parties have been involved in discovery and are well on their way to trial, but Metro changed courses and asked the court to dismiss the case, contending that the garbage customers had no standing to even be in court. Unfortunately, the court agreed with Metro based on a case that requires a plaintiff to have to show that the court order that the plaintiff is seeking will have a direct actual impact on the plaintiff. because you approve rates which collectors charge, which are in part based on Metro's tip fee, there is really no guarantee that if Metro lowers the tip fee, that impact is going to be passed along to the ratepayers and be benefited for that. And so during the hearing and afterwards, the judge basically said that the challenge law in this case has no direct impact on the plaintiffs or any residential customer of garbage services. Its impact is indirect because it depends on local government actions in setting a fee, limiting what garbage hauling franchisees can charge. And then this is what else the court said, quote, as any citizen who pays taxes and fees knows, it is rare for local governments to lower fees for services after going through the lengthy public processes necessary to set them. It seems highly improbable that plaintiffs' waste disposal costs will be reduced, even if they were to win a declaratory judgment against Metro. So what the court was saying here is, look, even if you win, you're not going to see any benefit from that victory. Now, what was worse was what Metro's lawyers said during the hearing. At one point, the judge asked a rhetorical question. She said, well, if the garbage customers can't challenge Metro's adherence to whether it's adhered to its charter or not, who can? And this is what the lawyers said. They said, plaintiffs can hold Metro accountable, but at the polls, not in the courtroom. There are 6 Metro councilors elected from individual districts and 1 council president who is elected region-wide. If plaintiffs are unhappy with how Metro charges for garbage disposal, they can say so at the ballot box. They can do the same thing for their city and county elected officials. Send the rascals packing, as the saying goes. Well, Madam Chair and members of the commission, that is wholly unsatisfactory as far as we are concerned. What Metro is saying is it can violate its charter and completely evade any review by the court because it can take the position that no one has standing to challenge whether Metro has adhered to its charter or not. I don't think that's right, and that's not fair. So this proposed ordinance fixes that problem. And what the ordinance does is it proposes that if Metro is ever ordered by a court to reduce its tip fees, that tip fee reduction is passed along directly to the garbage customers. Section 1 of the proposed ordinance says, in the event that Metro reduces or is required by a court or otherwise to reduce its per ton solid waste rate, tip fee, or any similar charge charged by Metro on a per ton basis, that the waste management fee for collection services set by the board shall be reduced commensurately, so that 100% of the reduction in fees paid to Metro as a result of Metro's reduction and yours to the benefit of residents paying for collection services in the form of a reduced waste management fee paid by those residences. Members of the commission, this is the right thing to do. It's the right thing, first of all, to pass on Metro rate reductions, if they ever occur, directly to the customers, but also by establishing this direct link. It then allows a garbage customer to be able to go back into court and to challenge whenever Metro violates its charter. And I think that's good public policy. And so I commend this ordinance to you. And I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, John DiLorenzo. Stephen Madcore, do you have any comments about this?
Chair, I really do not. No.
Okay. Commissioners, do we have anybody in the queue that wants to talk?
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, Chair.
Commissioner Savas, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, John. I appreciate you laying that out as you did. I don't think that accountability necessarily means that the only recourse is removing someone. That's simply not a level playing field. That's an impossible task for the average ratepayer in many instances, especially in a region this large. So therefore, it seems to me there should be some accountability if there is somewhat of a violation or a discrepancy in how they follow their own ordinances. So I'd be inclined on behalf of the ratepayers of the region and in Clackamas County especially to, get some resolution to this. So John, what is exactly the ask here? We're talking about a code change on our part?
Well,
Could you explain that?
Paul, I think, Commissioners, what we're considering today is we could move this to a policy session, which is what I recommend we do, to have a more in-depth education process on this and bring more information forward. I'm going to recommend that a little bit later. I have some more information to present as well. But I see, Paul, do you have any more questions?
No. As long as we can carry this forward and have more discussion, I'm fine with that.
Okay, Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, thanks for that. Nice to see you, Mr. DiLorenzo. I hope your family's doing well. Okay?
We're great.
All right.
Thank you.
In any case, I guess my question is, this is kind of, it hasn't come from us directly. This comes from clients, am I correct, that you are representing, that see this discrepancy in the, how Metro is managing its own charter. Bless their hearts. Okay. So my question is, for the context of this, I mean, what has been the process? Have we talked to haulers? Have we, I mean, for me, does this duplicate a fee review process? Have we consulted with the Solid Waste Commission? So, and we don't have to answer that now, but those are some of the questions that when I kind of look at this, I need to have answered because
I think we can do that at a policy session. We don't have time now. And this is, remember, the order of business that we
Right.
discussed. This is a proper order of business. We bring in the issues. We thoroughly vet it during a policy session, which we can schedule into the future.
All right, great.
And we can have some of these questions answered, is what I recommend today. Commissioner Scholl, do you have any comments?
No, I do not.
Okay. Commissioner, Fisher?
Yeah, I would want more
a
information.
policy
and
session.
Along the lines of what Commissioner Schrader said, just the stakeholders, hearing from them as to, where they would weigh in. And
So if I'm hearing this right, what we're being asked to do, since the county either approves or not approves rate increases, is that right, Stephen Madcore?
That's correct, our
Okay,
Solid Waste
so-
Commission.
So have we ever been in a situation where we've had a rate reduction?
I seriously doubt it, but I don't have all the
So-
history on that.
So what we're being asked, and I think the question is simple in this resolution, and correct me if I'm wrong, if Metro ever decides that they do not need to raise rates, that they can in fact reduce rates, is that 100% of that rate reduction be passed on to residents? Is that correct?
That's the language as currently drafted as I interpret it.
Mr. DiLorenzo?
Yeah, and Madam Chair, that's right, but the purpose is to allow ratepayers to go into court to challenge Metro.
I see.
The issue here is, we believe, and Metro denies this, but we believe that Metro is charging more for disposal of residential garbage than it costs them.
Okay.
We can't even get to first base in court because what the court has said is, well, wait a minute, there's no guarantee that even if you're successful, Mr. DiLorenzo, in getting a court order to make Metro reduce its rates, that any of that benefit will ever inure to the benefit of your clients. And that's because of the way these rates are set. And so what this would do is allow, not you, but allow residential garbage customers, when they feel that Metro is violating its charter, to even get to first base and bring up the matter in court. Metro's suggestion is, well, just vote against all the Metro councilors during the next election. And that's just, as Commissioner Savas pointed out, wholly unsatisfactory as a response.
So I'm going to recommend, Gary, that we set this up in a policy session. Is this time sensitive?
I believe it is. Is that correct, John?
Yeah, it is, because the court is weighing in early March as to whether it should dismiss this case or whether it should continue. If Clackamas County is willing to allow ratepayers, customers, to have some skin in the game, it's the customers who will, continue the litigation. And of course, whether they're successful or not is on their dime. But, to allow Metro to totally evade judicial review every time it violates its charter, I think is just horrible public policy. And we shouldn't have to depend on counties and haulers to have to enforce the charter against Metro. The citizens should be able to do that.
Gary, can we get this teed up for next week?
It would be a challenge, but if that's what you tell us to do, we'll reprioritize it, yes.
So I'm hearing you want it set for a policy session. I'll work with county administration and Mr. Di Lorenzo. Are we talking a half hour, you believe?
No, it's going to take longer than that. We're talking, it's going to be an hour.
1
I mean,
hour.
I think.
Gary and I will get it done. John will be in touch.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Before
Chair,
we
if I
leave
may.
this,
Yeah, just real quick, John, just going back to the line of logic that you explained, that was explained to you, that getting recourse or a refund and so forth. I'm just really wondering what the line of logic, or not the line of logic, but the actual, is there a scenario in which a Metro elected official has actually been removed from office by the electorate based on some impropriety or some matter like this? And I think in practicality, I can't remember of one. So it seems as though if the recourse is the ballot box, yet that hasn't shown to be effective. It seems to be using their line of logic, it seems to be maybe something that can be used in the future to evaluate whether or not that's a practical means.
Okay,
Well,
thank you.
and Commissioner, I think it's just, Metro is becoming quite a behemoth at this point. And really what they're saying is, look, no one has the right to challenge whether, in this instance, Metro's adhering to its charter or not. I think that's dangerous. As Metro starts doing more and more things, they shouldn't be able to escape judicial review.
Okay. Commissioner Fisher?
yeah, thank you. John, who's your client?
We have a number of them. One is the same group that brought the challenge to the city of Portland for overcharging ratepayers for expenditures that had absolutely nothing to do with the provision of water and sewer service. Mm-hmm. And that case was settled for $10 million transferred from the general fund back to the water and the sewer funds. And the actual plaintiffs in this case are Mr. Riley and Mr. Hoover, and they're both Clackamas County residents.
Okay, so you're representing residents, people that pay for the
That
fees?
pay garbage.
Okay, that was my
garbage.
question. Like, who's the client?
Gary?
Yeah.
And then, I have a couple more questions, but you can go ahead and interrupt me.
I think, Gary, are you wanting to be brief?
No, it's not related to what you're talking about, so when you're done.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sonia.
So I guess, Stephen, when we tee this up for next week, or Dan, I mean, some of the questions I have, we've all gone through this is how we set the rates. I'm curious about overall policy. Why is Metro needing to do different fees? Is there some public policy rationale for different types of waste being disposed of? Would any changes in our code affect our ability down the line to charge different rates? Because honestly, sometimes in public policy, it makes sense to charge some people that can pay more for those that can't pay. And I don't know. So those are some of my questions. Was there some sort of equity issue in setting this up? And how would this affect our discretion in the future? I want to make sure that we don't lock ourselves into anything.
Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I just have a question for Dan in the back. So this has not been generated by staff internally as a recommendation to the board, BCC. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That is correct.
Okay.
And I also want to make sure we go on the record, staff has no opinion about this particular lawsuit that Mr. DeLangelo is bringing up at all.
Okay.
This is more about process, so.
Thank you, Dan.
Okay.
Yeah, and you'll get an
We'll look at
opportunity
the
later.
process.
That's
Okay.
all. I think I think that we've decided to do this. Gary, tee it up.
Sorry, so I need your help. So there's a solid waste commission, that is a county advisory board, is that right, Dan Johnson?
That's correct.
So if you want their opinion, we can't get it by next Tuesday.
Okay.
So I just need to be upfront with you, commissioners. If you want their opinion, which you don't need it, but if you want their opinion, we cannot get it by Tuesday.
I think for process sake, we got to get their opinion, you guys, because what do we have them for? That's a slap in the face to other citizens who are on a, do we appoint them? Are they appointed? I mean, we appoint
That's a part of
them?
the ABC process.
So yes, you do. You appoint these.
Oh, yeah, that would not be good
I
process.
can do everything in my effort to get this thing back in maybe 2 weeks, to see if I can get that commission together as soon as possible. I'd have to advise you and see if they're available.
Okay.
Yeah, if there's not a time-sensitive issue, I think following the
for the
process
board
would,
purpose.
it would be obvious that we should be following all our processes if we're holding another jurisdiction to their processes.
Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of a slap in the face to boards. I mean, they are advisory. We know that, right? So
They
in
are
the end-
advisory.
So in the
We
end,
set
we're
the
like,
policy.
we get the call, but we gotta at least give them a courtesy of getting your input, so. All right,
So 2 weeks.
We'll loop them in.
We'll try to loop them in. We'll make every attempt possible to get back to you in a policy session in 2 weeks. And if something else needs to occur, we'll coordinate closely with Gary. And he'll let
Thank you
know.
very much. I think, well, that's good. Thank you, John DiLorenzo, for coming forth. Thank you, Stephen Madcore.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Thank
Right.
you very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
We'll be in touch, John.
Thank you. Next, advisory boards and commission appointments. Christina, please go ahead.
Yes, so we have 2 ABCs for this week. The first one is the Clackamas Workforce Partnership. They currently have 5 openings on their commission due to term expirations. 25 members are allowed with 3-year terms. 6 applications were received and 5 were recommended to be appointed. 3 applications are new and 2 applications or applicants are currently on the board. The recommendation goes as follows: Tyson Arnold, first term; Kendall Mason, first term; Stephen Achilles, first term; David Green, third term; and Peter Lund, third term. The second ABC is for the Compensation Board for elected officials. They currently have 1 opening on their board due to term expiration of a member. This ABC holds a member roster for 3 members with 4-year terms each. 3 applications were received and 1 was recommended. Melissa Fireside for her first term. For both of these recruitments, the Board of County Commissioners could select other candidates or require further recruitment. And that is it.
Do we
Move for
need to,
approval.
do we,
Second.
Board, do we need to take these separately?
You don't need to. You could do them together or separately.
I was going to recommend we do them separately, but if the board wants to do them together. Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none. Christina, take a poll.
Okay, Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Savis?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
aye?
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
And Chair Smith?
Aye. Motion passes. Gary.
All right, your business meeting agenda for this Thursday, February 25th. It's being revised even as we speak. We are adding an update from the Chief Executive Officer of Portland General Electric, Maria Pope. She has agreed at Chair Smith's request to come before you this Thursday to give you a briefing on the power outages and power restoration and to answer your questions. As well as you will have 2 public hearings. The first will be the proposal of the 5-year county sheriff's public safety local option levy, and then a supplemental budget for Clackamas County. So those will both be public hearings where the public can comment. And then if you agree today, commissioners, all of the consent agenda proposals, because we delayed them from last week, will be added to this week's agenda. So that will be a full meeting for you this Thursday.
Sounds like it might be a long meeting.
It will be a long meeting for sure, so bring your lunches.
Okay. All right.
All right. Next, landlord rental assistance, Commissioner Fisher, and Chris, if you're watching, please come in the room.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, just briefly, Chair Smith and I, in our weekly or biweekly meeting, had a conversation. There is a property management person out in Estacada that brought this to my attention, who was talking about how especially in our more rural communities, the landlords are small. They're not big. They have single people, not single people, but families. They don't have big complexes. And they're really struggling through this pandemic and with the eviction moratorium. And when that is lifted, she is very concerned about there being just epic issues of people being evicted. And I know that we do not have the ability to solve this problem, but I'm hoping that the board can recognize this as an issue that's a concern in Clackamas County and just ask our public affairs folks to put this on the list to keep us informed if there is anything that's happening at the state and federal level that we can weigh in on, that we do so strongly, so that we don't have a serious crisis here in Clackamas County, given that we are the safety net for folks. So that is there's Chris right there. I was expecting you to come up on the screen.
Chris, can you come up, please?
Can you do what she just said?
Sorry, I only caught part of it. So this is specific to,
Just when
when
the
the-
eviction moratorium is lifted, which it will be, because we are going to get through this pandemic, and I know that if I miss my student loan payment for a month, it's hard to pay the next month. You think about that being rent payments over time, it could really be an issue. I know that other jurisdictions, because I've had this conversation through AOC, that there are concerns from other counties as well, that it's really bubbling up to the top of people's radar, that when this eviction moratorium is lifted, there's going to be a lot of evictions. We're going to have some serious problems with homelessness. So whatever is happening, state level or local level, if we could be in coordination so that we can weigh in as appropriate and give some strength to what solutions are going to be proposed.
yeah, absolutely. I would say that issue fits squarely within both of our state and federal agendas. I understand that the Landlord Compensation Fund went live maybe this week, and it was, as we can all expect, super high demand.
Yep.
And there was only a limited amount of money that the legislature put in there a couple months ago. So we will be certainly monitoring this and engage with our partners, and happy to keep you in the loop as this continues to be discussed.
Yeah, that would be great. And one thing we tried, and Kimberly's been awesome trying to get more information, there was a study done that looked at this issue statewide, but to my knowledge, we don't have any Clackamas County specific numbers as what this would mean to us that we know of right now. But if that is possible for us to really tee this up so we can communicate effectively with Congressman Schrader, with Senator Merkley, Senators Wyden, and with our legislators to say, look, this is what, we have this many people in Clackamas County that have not paid their rent. And this is what we're looking at as a issue come. And I don't even know when the date is that it keeps getting extended, so I'm not sure what the date is.
I think maybe a more appropriate question is, like you say, how many people have not paid their rent because they cite COVID as the reason? And then the second issue, are landlords going to be compensated? How will landlords be compensated on this? And those are just two looming issues that, wow, I don't know how to deal with those at all. I think it's hugely complicated. I was grateful for the Landlord Assistance Fund that the legislature put through, but like you say, it's probably going to be extinguished in short order. I mean, I know several landlords who are trying to get in line to figure out what to do with that. Mr. Schrader.
Yeah, and I don't know the answer to this, but I'm going to put it out there and see if I can get Tracy and NACO to help me out. We did have a large urban county caucus meeting this past week with the National Associations of Counties, and I know that we're talking about the relief package that's being generated at the federal level, and I don't know this for a fact, but it seems to me it would be highly likely that landlord relief might be part of that package. I'm wondering if we can check in on that. And Tracy and I will take a look, or you guys want to take a look at the
Well,
NACO
we're doing
website?
Paul Savas and I are doing our federal DC virtual fly-in tomorrow and Thursday.
Virtual fly-in?
Yeah, I don't know, I think maybe our team was having some fun with what we're doing here.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll be talking to Summit Strategies as a 7 a.m. phone call tomorrow morning. We can ask them on that, get their opinion if we should ask our Oregon delegation the question. How's that?
Yeah, I think that's great.
Okay, let's do that. Don't forget to let.
They'll know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, Summit Strategies will know exactly what we're doing, so we'll ask that first thing this morning and try to get back. And when we get an answer, we'll have Gary put it out to you.
Commissioner Savas has his hand raised.
What?
Commissioner Savas
Oh,
has his hand raised.
go ahead, Mr. Savas.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, we, somewhere along the lines, there's going to be a number of things that need to be reconciled after this COVID disaster is over with. And this is one of them. And, I think the landlords need to be made whole. And I think that if they are made whole, then that will alleviate maybe a lot of evictions. And so I've got my focus on that as one of the issues that needs to be resolved. And I'm glad to hear that we all seem to agree with that. So whether it's federal or whether it's state, but I think it's pretty complicated. But we need to make sure that the people that are providing housing, if we want to encourage them to continue in that business, and we have a housing need, which is quite obvious, that's growing, that we need to treat that industry well if they're going to be continuing to provide housing. And so it's a no-brainer that this needs to be reconciled.
Okay. Commissioner Fisher, do you have any more statements or questions that you need to try to get resolved?
I don't think so. I think just getting on everybody's radar is a priority. It's a potential tsunami that's in the future, that whatever we need to do to sound the alarm from the local level to our state and federal partners will be great. And if we could do that with data, I would love it. So I'm not sure how we get that data, but I know we have really smart folks doing policy here at the county, and they can assist.
That would be fine. Okay, Gary.
Okay, great. Thank you, Commissioner and Chris. Next, public communication at board business meetings. Let me recap where I think you're all at, commissioners, on this topic. So, the public communication a section of the business meeting agenda. This will be at the end of the business meeting agenda. That actually is where it has been for years, and it was only during COVID we moved it to the front. But it's up to the board where you want it on the agenda, but we're going to move it back to the end of the meeting agenda. We are now registering attendees to the Zoom portion of the business meetings and ask people to identify in advance if they wish to testify under public communication. So we'll be able to have a number of people who will be testifying at each meeting. We will retain the 3 minutes per person to testify during public communication unless there is a large number of individuals, in which case the chair always has the discretion to consider limiting the number of minutes per person. We've done that per practice in the past. So if there's 50 people, the chair could decide 2 minutes a person instead of 3. That's up to the discretion of the chair based on the number of people wishing to testify. There will not be a limit on public communication of a time period. It was floated perhaps a 30-minute limit. That is off the table. So that is the proposal to go forward. I'm happy to answer any questions or feedback, but otherwise, if you're all okay, that's the process we'll follow going forward for public communication.
Thumbs up from Paul, Martha.
Good idea.
Joel.
Yeah, just one thought. It may be appropriate, depending on what our business is for the day, to switch it around for certain meetings. And so we do discuss on Tuesdays what our agenda is. If any of us thought about that, we could talk about that at the time. I'm just thinking if we wanted some public comment for something that was.
Well, that's allowed during the hearings that we'll have. For instance, this week, we have 2 hearings, right, Gary? And those will happen before our normal public comment. So we have the sheriff's levy and what's the other hearing?
Supplemental budget.
Supplemental budget hearing. If people want to testify on that, I think we're going to get some folks on the sheriff's levy. I would be shocked if we didn't. But, and that testimony is separate than from our regular public comment, which will remain at the end of the business meeting.
I'm just thinking of if there was a consent agenda item that people wanted to comment on, it would be good.
Well,
Too.
I don't know if we're going to allow that now. You know, we could be here all day, really, on this. So this particular week, we're going to be here long enough as it is, so.
Yeah, but just for procedure, my understanding is chair sets the agenda, 2 commissioners can propose a change, and as needed, I think it's fine. But if there was an issue that potentially some people wanted to comment on that was a consent agenda item, I would want to hear that before the end of the meeting.
How often does that happen?
It doesn't, so I just don't think it's going to be an issue. But if it were, I'm just bringing it up. I'm
Okay,
doing what you call issue spotting.
Yeah, okay, whatever. Can we move on?
Yes. All right, very good. Thank you. I'm going to ask we hold Commissioner communications until the end. Next is request for consent agenda. Should you agree, Commissioners, I'm going to ask we put all of these on this Thursday's business meeting agenda because staff has already postponed these for 2 weeks and we do need to move forward. Here's what I'm going to ask. If you're a director on Zoom and you're presenting, raise your chat hand so Christina knows you're the one presenting for any of the departments listed. Malcolm gets to go first because he's been patiently waiting in person in the room. So I'm jumping on your list, Commissioners, forgive me, to Community Corrections near the bottom of the list. This is approval of an intergovernmental agreement between Clackamas County Community Corrections and Willamette National Cemetery to provide work crew services from February 1st, 2021 through January 31st, 2022. The amount, it's revenue in the amount of $27,000 we would receive from Willamette National Cemetery. Malcolm is the Director of Community Corrections. Please, 5-minute update, please.
Good afternoon, Chair Smith and Commissioners. This is one of 28 contracts we have with various municipalities, and this is our only federal contract that we provide services to with our community service crews. This helps complement services at a reduced cost. Specifically for Willamette National Cemetery, it's landscape type work, leaf blowing, complementing and adding to the services, their own staff they have that do that. They actually sought us out about a year ago, and they've really enjoyed having our services there. And it's a much reduced rate compared to what they would have to pay a contractor for. The benefit to Clackamas County is its revenue, and community service is an alternative to jail. Jail is very costly. We performed about 34,000 hours of work in the year of 2019. So that equates to about 2,100 jail days that weren't used. So brief overview. If there's follow-up questions specifically about this contract.
Any questions for the presenter, Commissioners? Do we approve, Commissioners?
Oh, sorry. So does this, I just found it, I'm sorry. You were talking and I was looking
That's
for
okay.
the actual item, which was down there. So what my understanding is, it's an IGA to allow our, I guess our residents of the jail, is that how we want to say it? Or through
No.
community corrections.
Community corrections
Community
clients.
corrections, people on probation then to do community service through Willamette National Cemetery.
Correct. We provide crews to them, and so we'll take a crew in COVID times of 4 to 8 and perform landscape type services.
And then it says that IGA will provide approximately $27,000 in revenue to support the community service program. So these individuals don't get compensated, but the program gets compensated by Willamette National.
Correct. About $450 a crew helps offset our cost of fuel, tools, the transportation, the vehicles. So it supplements the program. It doesn't pay for the program itself.
And then the only lever I see on issues like this is, does this take jobs from the community for people that would have jobs that could pay living wages?
No. Oftentimes, municipalities don't have the ability to fund or to fund individuals to come do the type of work we do, to get 4 to 8 people with weed eaters out in a very challenging area and perform the work. So it's a cost savings to municipalities. It's not taking employment away. It's a cost savings to the county, and it's a cost savings to the citizens of Clackamas County specifically by reducing the jail utilization. The community service crews are made up of those sentenced to adult parole and probation, sanctions for post-prison supervision, but also specifically the courts utilize it for their bench probation cases that otherwise they would probably choose to put individuals into some amount of jail time. So across, it's a win-win for the community as a whole.
Okay, thank you. I was just going to say, it sounds like a win-win-win-win-win.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It really
Malcolm.
is.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Commissioners, we approve? Seeing no opposition, we approve. Thank
Great.
you.
To
And
put
we
on
will vote
consent
on it in
agenda.
the,
Thank you, Commissioners. and
Thank
Chair
you,
Smith.
Malcolm, for waiting. All right, now we're going back to the start of the list, everyone. Sorry for the shift. Back to the start of the list. Juvenile Department is first. Is it Christina?
Yep,
All
Christina
right,
and Ed
Christina,
Jones.
the Director. Approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Health Authority for behavioral rehabilitation services reimbursements. The estimated maximum annual net revenue for the county is $273,049. Christina, go ahead.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning, Commissioners, Chair Smith. We are here before you to get this new IGA hopefully approved. It helps provide partial reimbursement for our short-term residential placements that we provide to youth who are engaged with the juvenile department. And these are opportunities for youth to safely remain in the community while getting the services that they need when they can't, for a whole host of reasons, safely return home and be placed in their with their families. So these placements are up to 90 days, and this reimbursement provides approximately 42% of the total cost of these beds for our department. So we would ask that you approve this. This is a longstanding arrangement that we've had with the state of Oregon to be able to access Medicaid dollars to help offset our operating costs. And I believe the original agreement, which has evolved over the years, started in the early 2000s. So this is a service we've been offering to youth who are juvenile justice system involved for many years.
thank you, Christina. Any other comments from commissioners or questions? Commissioners, we're okay with this?
Nice to see you, Christina.
Yep, thank you.
Great, thank you. Next, assessment and taxation. I assume Bronson is doing this one? All right, approval of the Oregon MAP intergovernmental agreement between Clackamas County Assessor's Office and the Oregon Department of Revenue for the administration of the ad valorem property tax system. The contract is $35,000 and is funded through the state of Oregon. However, our Assessment and Taxation Department does contribute an additional $10,000 annually to support the conversion of maps through quality control, new plat maintenance, plat and deed research, and project management. Bronson, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Good morning again, County Commissioners. My name is Bronson Rueda, and I'm the Deputy Assessor for the Assessment Taxation Department. I'm here today to request the board approves IGA contract DOR-310-20 with the Oregon Department of Revenue for the purpose of continued conversion of our Mylar maps to a digital GIS database. Essentially, this IGA is grant money from a state-administered program to pay for our cartography temporary employees to better the ORMET program and our GIS digital footprint. This program is funded by collecting $1 from each recorded land-related document from all 36 Oregon counties. And at a high level, the vision of ORMAP is to develop a statewide digital cadastral-based map that, among other items, supports the Oregon property tax system. It's publicly accessible, it's continually maintained, and it will continue to improve over time. So again, I request that this IGA is approved so we can continue our ORMAP work.
Any questions, comments? Commissioners, we like this? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Bronson. Next, Health, Housing, and Human Services is Rod doing this?
He's on, yep.
All right, first, approval of an area plan for years 2021 through 2025. Received $1.8 million in funding and $1 million. So Rod, I need you to identify the acronyms, please, because I don't know what they are. Rod, go ahead, please.
The Older Americans Act is the OAA, and the Oregon Project Independence is the OPI.
Thank you. Go ahead, Rod. Any other information?
So good morning, Commissioners, Chair. Every 4 years, Social Services, acting as the Area Agency on Aging, is required to develop an area plan, how it would use the Oregon American Act and the Oregon Project Independence revenues funding to assist Clackamas County residents. And basically what this does is helps elderly remain independent, healthy, and engaged in their communities as long as possible. This plan would take effect January 1st, 2021, and go through June 2025. I know you're always interested in how much background information we do, so basically I'll talk about social services utilized a variety of methodologies to develop the plan, including a survey, focus groups, data analysis, and listening sessions, and a review of the Clackamas County reports and data from the programs that are current to date. The three main goals that are coming out or are embedded in this plan are reduce barriers to access for elderly, create and update quality assurance efforts to make sure that we're keeping on top of our quality pieces, and then third, expand programming throughout the county to these elderly clients. And I think Brenda is in the waiting room if you have in-depth questions, but if you don't, I could probably field them.
Commissioner Savas has his hand raised.
Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, just real quick, Rod, do you have just a rough idea how many people we serve annually? Unique individuals?
Is Brenda with us?
I can
Brenda Durbin? Is she in the waiting room?
She is. Let
We'll
me
bring her in, Rod.
Yep.
Okay.
She is in. If she can unmute herself and turn on her camera. There she is.
Good morning. Chair, Commissioners, I don't have those numbers off the top of my head, and our data systems don't necessarily always talk to each other. So I will need to get back to you with a number. It's many hundreds, but I want to give you the correct information. I don't have that number handy right now.
Thank you.
Any other discussion, comments? Move for approval, or no, not move for approval.
Send it to the consent agenda, yes.
Yes, the consent
Very good.
agenda.
Next, number 2, approval of a sub-recipient professional services agreement with Outside In for HIV testing and counseling services. Maximum value is $22,477, funded through the State of Oregon Health Authority. No general funds. Rod, go ahead.
Yeah, and that's, I think, Gary, you've mentioned everything that I was going to say about that. It's basically for HIV testing. We've used them in the past. This is a great local nonprofit, and no general fund is involved in this particular grant. It's for $22,477.
Comments from commissioners? Move to consent agenda.
Okay, next, 3, approval of a change order between Clackamas County and Ancrom Mosayan Associated Architect for Sandy Health Clinic project. The amendment would add $6,350 for a total contract value of $282,601 funded through the Health Centers Fund. No general funds involved. Go ahead, Rod.
Yes, and the only thing I'd add to this is the change order includes geotechnical infiltration review of the existing site and soil, and also extends the contract until 2/28/2022. And as Gary mentioned, it's just for a $6,350 increase.
Comments from commissioners? Hearing none, move to consent agenda.
All right, number 4, approval of an amendment to a revenue agreement with Care Oregon for behavioral health and primary care. This is for payment for services furnished to persons enrolled in the Oregon Health Plan. No general funds involved. Go ahead, Rod.
Yes, as Gary has mentioned, Care Oregon establishes a schedule of payments for professional behavioral health services in health centers, primary care centers. And so this would basically be revenue we would be getting from Care Oregon. And as Gary mentioned, no general fund is involved in this revenue contract agreement.
Any comments from commissioners? Move to consent agenda.
All right, number 5, approval of an intergovernmental agreement amendment with Clackamas County Circuit Court to provide protective order and support services. The amendment will add $79,156 for a total contract value of $152,212, funded through the United States Department of Justice. No general funds involved. Go ahead, Rod.
Yes, and this would provide a point 65 FTE court clerk to be located at a Safe Place Justice Center that most of you have been involved in creating. A great partnership with CWS over there and the sheriff's office. And so basically this just brings that court clerk to that facility so that the persons involved do not have to go down to the court, and we just make the whole process easier for the victims in this case. So no general fund is involved in this one, and it's $79,156 increase.
Comments from commissioners? Move to consent agenda.
All right, number 6, approval of an amendment to the intergovernmental agreement with the State of Oregon Health Authority for operation as a local public health authority. The contract increased by $1,675,709, bringing the maximum value of the contract to $13,405,871 with funding through the State of Oregon. No general funds are involved. Rod, go ahead.
Yes, and the 1.6 million will be used for contract tracking, and 20,000 of that for COVID RAP direct client services. And as Gary mentioned, there's no general fund involved.
Rod, is this a new funding source?
No, this is, we have the State of Oregon, and basically they've given us money in the past, and now they're giving us some additional funds.
Okay, any other comments from commissioners? I'll move to consent agenda.
Number 7, approval to apply for a Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act Adult and Dislocated Worker Services, I assume grant, $170,000 with funding through the United States Department of Justice. No general funds are involved. Rod, go ahead.
Yes, and this would be, this is really approval to apply. And so basically the funds would be used to provide adult and dislocated worker services to limited English-speaking populations in Clackamas County. Services would be designed to help participants find jobs, keep jobs, and advance in jobs. No general fund is required as a match on this one.
Comments from commissioners? Move to consent agenda.
All right, number 8, approval of a federal sub-recipient grant amendment with Northwest Family Services to expand youth opioid prevention and early screening to include Sandy and Estacada. The amendment adds $114,360.51 for a total award of $189,360.51 with funding through the United States Department of Justice. No general funds are involved. Rod, go ahead.
Yes, and just to reiterate, Northwest Family Services has a current contract with us now. This would expand those services, and as Gary had mentioned, this actually takes us into, we go into Estacada now and Sandy with these funds. So this is an expansion, and there's no general funds match required with this grant.
Comments from commissioners? Move to consent agenda.
Great, thank you, Rod, very much. Next,
Thank you.
Technology Services. Approval, and there was a typo on your agenda. I apologize, commissioners. I will read the correct numbers. Approval of a service level agreement between Clackamas Broadband Exchange and Astound Broadband LLC. The revenue fee is $4,250, not $4.2 million, which would have been great, but no, it's only $4,250 and a reoccurring annual lease of $3,060. Is Dave presenting? Dave Cummings, go ahead, please.
Dave, you're on mute, Dave.
Else. Okay, yeah, this is just service level agreement to extend their fiber, $4,200 to extend their fiber. They're an existing customer of ours, have been for a long time. And then there's a reoccurring fee of $255 a month for the use fee, which is $3,060 a year. And this is, typical of RCBX selling and expanding the dark fiber within the county.
Any questions from commissioners? Move to consent agenda.
Very good, thank you, Dave.
Thank you very
Next,
much.
Clackamas County Sheriff's Office. First, request by the Sheriff's Office to accept a grant from the Oregon Department of Transportation for reimbursement of overtime activities related to safety belt enforcement. The total grant is $15,000 coming to the county from the Oregon Department of Transportation. Who is presenting?
Richard Sheldon is on.
Right, Richard, go ahead, please.
Hey, good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Yeah, this is $15,000, and what it's designed to do is from ODOT, it's going to provide additional funds towards targeted enforcement aimed to increase vehicle restraint usage and reducing injuries when traffic crashes are involved. It will enhance CCSO's ability to conduct traffic enforcement operations. It will also allow us more assets to respond to traffic issues within Clackamas County. The funds are from federal dollars that are sent to ODOT and managed by ODOT. We've had these grants in the past for well over 10 years, I believe. And then the average amount of hours that we're going to gain is 173 patrol hours. And there's no significant cost because we're reimbursed fully for that.
Comments by commissioners? Move to consent agenda.
Great. Next is a request by the Sheriff's Office to accept a grant from the Oregon Department of Transportation for reimbursement for overtime activities related to speed enforcement. The total grant is $20,000 coming to the county from the Oregon Department of Transportation. Richard, go ahead, please.
Yeah, and this is pretty much the same thing. It's going to go through ODOT again. It's something we've had in the past. We're reimbursed fully for our expenses. And what it'll allow us is about an extra 231 hours of patrol time.
Comments from commissioners? Move to consent agenda.
Great. Thank you, Richard, very much. Moving on next to Water Environment Services. And so this will be Ron. Christina?
Yes, he is
approval of a contract between Water Environment Services and West Consultants for the stream flow and precipitation monitoring project. Contract total is $812,220. No general funds involved. Ron, go ahead, please.
Sorry, I had just a tiny technical hiccup. I just brought him back in.
Okay.
Okay, Ron.
Hi, good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Ron Waringo with Clackamas Water Environment Services. We're seeking your approval to put on consent and then next week a contract with West Consultants to install, operate, and maintain our network of stream flow and rainfall monitoring sites across our service area, and to include some technical support for our real-time stormwater control ponds in Happy Valley. The data, we've been doing this monitoring for decades. The data is critical for our wastewater and surface water planning projects like master plans for our collection systems and wastewater facilities, as well as inflow and infiltration reduction planning, design standards, watershed modeling, et cetera. We do some of our monitoring work internally, like monitoring in our wastewater flow system and our water quality monitoring. This contract is necessary to provide outside expertise and additional capacity that we can't do without adding more staff. We have previously contracted for this work, the stream flow and the pond control part for over 5 years, and we're looking to add the redeployment of a rainfall monitoring network going forward. Duration is, it's a 6-year contract through the end of 2026. First year will be about 25% a capital investment for the rainfall network, installing data loggers and sensors. Then going forward, it's mostly operation and maintenance of the system with some contingencies in the contract to install new sites. If need be, after the term of this contract, we will again reevaluate the scope and reevaluate whether we should do this in-house or do another contract with your approval.
Any comments by commissioners? Mr. Scholl.
Ronald, is this monitoring required by the federal government? Is that what initiated this?
Commissioner Scholl, some of the monitoring is required by our some surface water mandates for mostly total maximum daily loads in various Clackamas County watersheds and our municipal stormwater permit. The information supports other mandated activities around various planning efforts. So in part, not directly, I would say.
Okay.
Any more comments? Move to consent agenda.
All right, great. Thank you, Ron. Finally, North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, approval of addendum to lease agreement of Clackamas Elementary School buildings and grounds between the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District and Cascade Heights Charter School. The lease agreement will have a revenue of $127,629 and will increase 5% annually. This does not involve general funds. Who is presenting?
Candy Ho is online, and go ahead and.
Candy, go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners, and Administrator Schmidt. Today, I am bringing forward an addendum to extend the current lease agreement with Cascade Heights Charter School for use of the Clackamas Elementary School property. Last year, this agreement was inadvertently extended for only 1 year when we had intended to extend the lease for 2 years. This addendum will correct that error, extending the lease while keeping all other terms and conditions in original lease agreement, which includes a 5% annual increase, and extends this agreement term through June 30th, 2022, as originally intended.
Any comments from commissioners? Nope. Move to consent agenda.
All right, Candy, thank you. Very good. All right, so with your approval, commissioners, I'd like to move all of these to this Thursday's business meeting because, again, most of these were held over already 2 weeks, and I would like to move forward if that is acceptable.
Yep, that's fine.
Thank you very much. Final item today is Commissioner Communications.
Who wants to speak first?
Well, Chair,
Go ahead, Paul.
Sorry, Martha.
No, go ahead.
I just want to just say that there's been a number of things in the last few weeks and months with regard to transportation funding that I'm hoping we can queue up a meeting with DTD staff to go over and start to inform you of what's about to change in the near horizon. I think it's really relevant, so you're all prepared and understand. I just share with you some of the, and I'll share some of that with Commissioner Smith tomorrow when we talk on our virtual fly-in. But their transportation funding, gas tax as we know it, is not going to be around for very much longer in the same way it is today, I should say. So there's a move afoot to do what was once called vehicle miles travel, or VMT, and is now called a road user fee. And in 2027, for example, all vehicles will have the capability of transmitting how many miles you travel, and that will be the form of collection for a fee that will be in lieu of the gas tax. So there'll be a conversion period, but that will mean that the way things are funded is going to change completely. And I think we need to be on top of this to make sure that our local share for the counties especially, and of course cities are going to be involved as well, and also the state, that we get a fair share. And I don't know how that'll be divvied up between the state and the feds, but we need to be on top of this. So I thought by broaching this very complicated topic in little bits that we can absorb over a period of time, so just kind of keep you all apprised of what's happening. And tolling's one of those things as well. So I'll just conclude there and say that just let you know that we're going to be working on queuing something up for a work session on this.
okay.
Thank you. Martha.
Yeah, I wanted to bring this up, and unfortunately, I had a meeting planned with Jill Smith and Fahid, but the weather canceled it. But I was asked with Commissioner Farr from the Association of Oregon Counties, because we've worked on housing together. They wanted to talk about the fact that 5 of our counties were able to get a direct allocation. This is what we had kind of talked about earlier when it talked about tenants and landlords, to support tenants and landlords in avoiding evictions whenever possible, and they were made part of the $25 billion emergency rental assistance that was a part of the federal COVID-19 funding passed by Congress in 2020. The collective allocation is $76 million to us, well, to the 3 tri-county area, and over the next year, providing substantial investments made by September. So basically, what the Association of Oregon Counties have asked us to do, and for me to sign a letter to folks, other folks in the other commissions, to have a forum to share and develop strategies in approaching this problem. They feel that we can benefit from our respective experience dealing with evictions and what has and hasn't worked. So basically, they would like to see us work together with Washington and Multnomah County under the umbrella of the AOC about how we're going to coordinate and allocate those monies. So Gary, I don't know how to approach this. I'm bringing it up now because they've asked me to sign a letter. We have not been able to discuss this with Fahid and Jill, but I just need to know if this is something we should go forward with. They're expecting me to actually sign it today, so, or to get it out.
Well, it's not it's your decision. I'm fine for you to send the letter because you're doing it through your role as an AOC board member.
Yeah.
But that's something our county staff would certainly be engaged with because we are receiving these dollars and we can work collaboratively with our other county partners on that. So that's totally fine from my perspective.
So I just want to make, is that okay with the commission at this point? Because
Well, it sounds like a good topic for District 8, quite frankly. So we should also check with when are we next meeting. But Martha, I would suggest you to advocate as strongly as you can.
Well, like I said, I think the reason they called me, because I was chair of a housing subcommittee, committee, when we were looking at legislation last go-round, and Pat Farr and I have worked together. So
Great.
They rang me up. I said, sure, I'll check in, but the time frame is kind of, because of the weather, has been tightened up. And I didn't think there's any big deal, but I don't want to move ahead unless other people.
No, Martha, I
guess.
think that's appropriate, and I really appreciate you coming to the board to discuss it.
And we could do it under a District 8 umbrella, and I could make that change to the letter, too. That'd
It's
be.
really
Well,
up
I
to
mean,
you.
eventually.
Pardon me?
I'm not sure what our schedule is to even meet, since
Go ahead
I'm
and
just
do it.
now been appointed chair of that.
Well, I think that Martha should go ahead and do that.
All right, we'll do it, and then you and I can coordinate.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Chair, I do have another meeting I want to go listen
Go
to.
ahead,
11:30.
go ahead, that's fine, we're almost done. Commissioner Scholl, do you have any comments?
Make comments at this time.
Yeah, I don't either. We will recess this meeting until 1:30. I'm sorry,
Oh, no, it's
Sonia,
all
I
right.
thought
No,
you
The
talked.
only update was the Supportive Services Metro Oversight Committee. There were a lot of questions from the group, really good discussion. I listen, they don't even have our picture up there for the ex officio members. And one of the issues that I'm really tracking closely is the cost of the administration for the collection of the tax and what is in Metro's budget and how is that arrangement with.
Which
the-
tax?
The Metro Homeless Services measure
Okay.
that Metro's going to be receiving. How are they accounting for that? Questions from this group, they held Metro to the fire, it was excellent, and they are going to be having to answer these questions. And I will, as I become informed, I will keep everyone up to date.
Thank you.
So that's all I've got.
Thank you, board. We will see you back here at 1:30, right, Gary?
Yes.
I can leave my stuff here, right?
Yes.